Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about homeschooling and keeping a portfolio and some of the things that you might want to put in your portfolio and deciding what kind of portfolio you want to have. So you're starting out the school year, one of the things you might want to do, you might want to begin with assessment tests to see what your student absorbed or if there was some things that they might need to review and to see if what level they're on. And they might be on a different level in reading or math or English. So you might want to do some assessment tests and highlight some of the questions they missed and put that into your portfolio. So there's just something you might want to put in your portfolio. Teaching resource favorites to choose from. You might want a page that just has your favorites, even if you're not going to use them all, because you might say, oh, I might not use this year, but I might use that next year. And if you're planning ahead and you're going through them, you might want a page that has these sources, and you might want to have little headings like online complete curriculum as a heading and some of your favorites, semi-complete curriculum, some workbooks, and things like that. General homeschool supplies, so you know what you need. So you have a list. So you have a page with different things like that. So that field trip ideas, career study field trip type ideas, math manipulatives, you might use art supplies, things like that, board games that you feel that are educational that you might want to use. PE, if you're planning on using a YMCA membership but you're not sure, that YouTube areas that you might be considering. And then when you decide on your final selection, then you might want to have another page of that in your portfolio of the ones that you chose. Let's say you chose all-in-one homeschool for your complete curriculum and a workbook that you want them to work on. So maybe you want them to work on the all-in-one homeschool for 3 hours a day, and then another hour out of the day you want them to work on a workbook that has complete curriculum. Maybe you might want to include that. So this helps you so you have your list and it's in your portfolio and you can see it. And if you want to create posters and have them create them so they remember them. I misspelled adjectives, it's supposed to be ADJ, but you get the idea. They might want to put which one, how many, and what kind on the poster, and adverbs, how, when, and where, so they understand what an adjective is and what an adverb is. So that you decide your final decisions. You've got the list. If you've got a day and you're going over it, there's your list. It's easy. Somebody comes over to look at your portfolio and sees what you're doing, then you have it. And if you've chosen your field trips, you have the list. And another thing, if you're doing career type field trips, in your list, you might want to create a list of questions about and telling such general knowledge skills as communicating with their staff, analyzing data, technology skills, maintaining schedules, meeting deadlines, managing multiple roles, problem solving skills, different things that they do in their job. You might want to have your student make a list of questions to ask the people as you go along on the field trip so that they learn more and they absorb more, and you might want them to see if they can record it on audio or video or if they just need to take notes and try to remember it. But that way it also will help them when prepare for someday when they go to try to get a job and they're interviewing. So and then they'll know, what kind of education people need for different jobs and their leadership skills and things like that. And so there's your basic list. You've got your list. And if you're going to create certificates and achievements, you might want to keep those before and after as you use them in your portfolio. And your student might want their own portfolio, or you might want the student to participate in creating the portfolio. But sometimes you create a portfolio and you go over it with them and you have them create their own portfolio for a keepsake. And some people like to have 3 portfolios, one for them for a keepsake, one for their student for a keepsake, and another one for if the Board of Education comes to view it, or they have a home teacher that comes and takes samples of their work and they don't want them taking the samples that they have in their portfolio, so they put them in a separate portfolio. But when you print out your curriculum for websites using books, contents pages, workbooks, and other things like that. Here, I'll show you an example. Like if you're using iExcel, you're printing out what they're going to be doing in math. Or if you've got a workbook and you're printing out the contents, you might want to keep that in your portfolio for them. So, a couple of calendars. You might want a calendar of what you plan on having to be the school year. And even public schools, they have like snow days and things come up and things happen, so they may end up changing it. So if you have a second calendar, you can put the days that you actually went to school or that you had school, or in the days that you went on field trips and holidays. And you can use highlight markers, or you can use like an X for school, an FT for field trip, and H for holiday. Things like that. And then when you go to do your portfolio, you need samples of the child's work in there, or the student's, depending on their age, the student's work. So, and then you have to decide what kind of portfolio are you keeping, because some people like to have a portfolio that showcases the best of the student's work. And if a student's creating a portfolio, that might be the kind of portfolio that they're creating. And you might want a portfolio that shows their improvements as they go along. Like you might want to take a math page where they do multiplication tables and they're first learning it and it's being timed. You might want to write the time on there. And then later on, when they do it again and they get a better time, you might want to put that in there so that it shows their how they get better and better at it. Or you might want the kind of portfolio that shows different skills and a variety of skills, such as one that shows multiplication, one that shows division, and one that shows fractions. So it just depends on what type of portfolio you are deciding on creating, especially if it's a keepsake. And if you're doing it for the Board of Education or a home teacher, you might want a certain kind for them, whereas you and your child or your student, if you're doing your own keepsake portfolio, you might want a completely different kind of portfolio for yourselves. You might even want all 3 in one with different tabs for your portfolio so that you can keep for when they get older. Another thing about homeschooling is you can begin your school day with prayer. You can even begin it with a Pledge of Allegiance or a couple of songs, your favorite hymn, the Star Spangled Banner, things like that, because you're homeschooling and that's your choice. Okay, you might want to have a sample weekly schedule to begin with when you're trying to decide how you want the schedule done, and you might want to put that in your portfolio, showing that you were working on the schedule and trying to decide. And then you might want to actually create the schedule, and when you create the schedule, you might want to put that in there. But one of the things you could do is, like on Wednesday, you could have home economic workshops or 4-H type classes, or one day a week where you do like jewelry making, do-it-yourself laundry, detergent, gardening, things like that, so that they have life skills and things like that. So, or you can do that Friday after lunch. You can have a flexible schedule with field trips, board games, magazines, where they're reading their subscriptions, which is still educational, art, online lessons, bowling, free writing, things like that. So you can do your schedule. And Saturdays, let's say Saturdays you've got your child at home and you're teaching your child to do laundry, you're teaching them to organize, you're teaching them to do the weekly meal planning and shopping skills and budgeting, and you're working as a team, and that's part of your education. You might want to put that down. Just don't forget to plan rewards for them, whether it's certificates of learning these new skills or whatever. And remember to uplift them. And let's say Saturday you go to the library for an hour or the YMCA for a few hours. You might want to write that down as part of the schooling that you are doing. So that's some ideas. So this is like you might want to have your schedule in your portfolio, which I would highly recommend. And you might want to carry a notebook around with you to write down the daily lessons your student completed that day as they go along, including the date, the subject, whether they learned it online and the name of the web page, or out of a book and the name of the book, and what they did, whether it was watching a Paul Bunyan video for history, or for math they were listening to multiplication songs, or circling pronouns, or out of the sentence for English in a workbook, or they wrote a short story about such and such, or played the calorie counting game if they're doing all-in-one homeschool. They have the calorie counting game on a website where they play. So you might want it for, here's an example for you. Whoops. It's underneath where it says, for example, day 1, August 5th, 8 a.m., history and reading. All-in-one homeschool. They listened to a Paul Bunyan story, they read a Paul Bunyan story, they watched a video, and you had an oral discussion. So, this is just an example of you writing down what they did for the day, so that you have that in your notebook, and then you might want to type it into a Word document or just a Word pad and email it to yourself every now and then in case your computer crashes, so you have it. And you might want to print that out as it grows and put that in your portfolio. And then notes like, during that school day they enjoyed the tongue twister, but reading it was a struggle, so they need to work on their reading, or things that they enjoyed doing or they struggled with or they were good at, so that you have this notes, because every, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks you might want to write assessments on each subject and how they're doing in each subject, and keep that in your portfolio. And always remember that even if they're struggling with certain things, that you write uplifting comments within those struggles about positive things about them, so that you're not putting them down and they see that they're even though they're struggling, they're working hard, and you think they're going to overcome it, and then you can put how they overcame it and things like that. And if they're keeping their own portfolio, they might end up putting down how they were able to overcome it and their struggles. And then notes like students learn better. All in one, that's a website with a complete curriculum like IXL. And you can check off which ways they learn different subjects better and make notes of it. And this might help you with your assessment, and it will help you with your teaching, because you'll know how to teach them better, how they learn better, so that you can focus on it. And you might want things like this. And I created this myself, and so you might want something like this to put in your portfolio for your students. Copies of forms and papers you filed with the Department of Education, stamped and dated, or even if you emailed them, printed out proof that you emailed them. Hopefully they email you back and let you know that they received them. I would have them do that. A list of contact names or groups dealing with homeschooling and their phone numbers and emails. State laws. You might want to print out the state laws regarding homeschool and check on that every year and see if it changes. And the date that you printed out and things like that. You might want that if you have a membership to HSLDA. I hope I'm spelling that right. You might want that in your portfolio. If you plan on teaching a variety of electives, and I've put some electives here for you to see. If you plan on teaching a variety of electives under a heading like home economics, 4-H classes, or life skills, you can add that along with the subjects that you plan on teaching, or even touching on them briefly. So maybe you want to spend a month one day a week, teaching them cooking or sewing or jewelry making. And that way you go along and teach them a variety of life skills or just different things that you think that you want them to learn. You can do that so that, I would make sure that I covered all the core subjects first and then maybe add an afternoon a week or one day a week to teach them different skills that you want. You want to make the majority of them learning core subjects, but it depends on how many hours a day they're learning. So if you're teaching them for 8 hours a day, then you could easily take a Wednesday or a Friday probably and do something like this, and then you can put that in their portfolio, take pictures of them doing it, and some of their work from that you might want to put in there as well. You want to print out the student schedule or have them create posters. If they have a weekly planner, your student's weekly planner, you might want to have them keep that in their portfolio if they have a separate portfolio. So here's some ideas of things that you might want in the portfolio. And if you get a free calendar online with the boxes for one page, that's easy to put in your portfolio, and you can mark off the boxes the days that you had school or the holidays. And then I just want to make sure that you see the core subjects and you're covering the core subjects. But then there's other subjects if you want them to learn a language or sewing or gardening or how to take care of gardens or raising chickens or whatever you decide that your other subjects are, you can keep that in your portfolio as well. So I'm hoping that this helps you. And you can put pages, like if you choose an essay that they created to put in the portfolio, you can put an introductory page in front of that essay and write the reason why you chose to put that in the portfolio, and write about it yourself. And you can also put a table of contents as the portfolio grows so that you have that in the portfolio as well. So there's some ideas for you, and I hope that helps you with creating your homeschool portfolio. Please feel free to leave comments, and thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Have a great day. Bye-bye.